right. Hi, everybody, and thanks for having me. And welcome to the roast of Dr. Eli Katz. So, my name's Jesse. I'm 32 years old. I work in tech in San Francisco. I work with software engineers all day. And then after me, my sister will come up. She is an artist in Santa Barbara. And following that, it'll be Eric, who graduated from Berkeley 2 years ago and is my current roommate in San Francisco, and basically a 2.0 version of me. Yesterday, we were talking about this speech, and my dad was just really cool about it. He said, yeah, go up there, say anything you want. Our mom, on the other hand, was shaking in fear. She was pleading with me. She's like, remember, Jesse, this speech is not about me. It's about your dad. He's the psychiatrist. So, in general, my dad left all the worrying to my mom. So, Mom, I won't mention you again. You're the best mom in the world. But if anybody wants to hear more, you can hear my talk on children of Jewish mothers tomorrow at 1 p.m. So now, on to my dad, who, as I said before, was not shaking in fear. And that's just kind of his personality. His future as a psychologist could be ruined by one of us, but I guess he just trusts us. Weird. So my dad has been a great guiding light and a calming influence, and somebody I've looked up to my whole life. I majored in neuroscience because of him, and I have a love of sports, tennis, baseball, golf, because he taught me at a very young age. And when I think about my dad, his profession isn't really the first thing that comes to mind. He's very well respected by his peers in Santa Barbara, but he tries not to bring his work home with him. He doesn't really overanalyze that much. In fact, he's a bit the opposite. He goes for the laissez-faire, like slightly hands-off approach. So he's a great dad, all I could ask for. And there were some things he was really strict about, like working hard in school and being a good person. But overall, he let me and my siblings make our own decisions, knowing we have to live with the consequences. So I have hundreds of examples, but I only have time to share two. So the first one was, in California, you need to be 16 years old to drive. But when I was 14, a guy in my class got a hold of a car and drove it to school every day. So most parents would tell their kids that this is wrong, this is against the law, but not my dad. He basically told me the pros and cons. He said, if this guy gets pulled over, we'll get in a lot of trouble, he'll owe a lot of money, and he won't be able to get his license until he's 18. So if you want a car, let me know. So I was more or less dumbfounded that he had mentioned, that he'd given me this opportunity. But I thought it was really great that he laid out the risks and let me make my own decision, which he more or less let me do. And so of course I didn't want to risk getting in trouble, waiting a few extra years, so I was a good boy and waited until 16. The second story was one Saturday, my dad was walking to the curb to pick up the newspaper, and 16 to 17-year-old Jesse was just arriving back to the house. It's probably 7 a.m. I was pretty wasted, like 7 a.m. and I hadn't slept, wasted. So most parents, you get in a little bit of trouble being 16, 17, coming home at 7 a.m., but not my dad. I never got lectured, and I never got in trouble for this. But what I did get was a knock on the door a few hours later saying, Jesse, it's a beautiful day. Let's play some tennis. Side note, we live in Santa Barbara, so 95% of the days are nice days. So, rolled over in bed, I said, no, Dad, I'm dying, I can't. And he jabbed back, he said, Jesse, it's a really nice day. We should really play some tennis. So basically there was no getting out of playing tennis with my dad, and then we played, and on that day he did beat me. And that is the last time he has beaten me in tennis. So I guess you gotta take an advantage when you see one. Overall, I have an amazing family, great dad. He's a great psychologist. Has a very calm temperament. He's been a great influence in my life. It's extremely rare to see him get angry. And if so, it was probably deserved. And it was definitely my sister Amy and my brother Eric's fault. I kid. That's all I have. And now Amy is going to come up and share some knowledge. So thank you.
First, I want to say that I think it's really special that you all chose to come out and listen to the valuable experiences of children, of psychiatrists, so thank you. As I was growing up, I realized from the movies that there is a pretty overarching stereotype of children of psychiatrists to be overanalyzed from their psychiatrist parent. I'm thankful to say that this has not been my experience. My sense of my dad is that he just likes to have a good time and keeps his spirits up. To give you a sense of things, he wears funky colored shirts, plays games like pickleball, travels a lot, seeks out good food, good wine, and good music. I have noticed that when he hears news, he doesn't always make an opinion about it right away, but rather looks for the good and says, oh well, and moves on. With the people he meets, he gets excited about their creativity and things that he connects with about them. And just looks for the best in people and situations, and also seems to have a big appreciation for people who are different or a little out there. So for the most part, I always just felt love. I always just felt like he accepted me for who I was and saw my positive traits and supported me in pursuing what I cared about. He did tell me about a friend of his he often mentioned a friend of his from medical school who focused on I don't know why I'm talking about this. I'm just going to read it. In family conflict, with a method that was called multi-directional partiality, which was to empathize with every member of the family to bring about resolution. This really seemed to resonate with him, and I can see that he really believes in just looking at all sides of things and connecting with where people are coming from. At one point gave me some books from psychologists and philosophers as Freud and Jung and Sartre, and would talk to me about his mind over matter philosophy, which he believed in strongly. This would come into play when I woke up in the morning and said, I don't feel well, I don't want to go to school. say, well, just give it a try, get up and get going, and you'll feel better. And while sometimes I just didn't want to go to school, it usually worked. And so, yeah, I got the sense that his patients really loved him. But I could also tell that when he wasn't at work, he wasn't working. He would come home and relax, just connect with family and friends, watch sports, make jokes, and don the infamous Rastafarian colored hat and or dreadlocked wig whenever he deemed appropriate. He clearly likes to laugh as often as possible, start playing a song that relates to whatever we're talking about. So yeah, just having a good sense of humor. And to wrap it up, I'm glad that he had healthy discernment to treat us like kids instead of patients, and to have a supportive childhood with Dr. Katz, the psychiatrist, and to get some laughs when that TV show was on air.
Eric, where are you?
Yep, I'm here. The microphone got me. All right. Thank you guys very much. My name is Eric Katz. I'm the baby of the family. And quickly, before I start about my dad, as we've all heard so far, he's a pretty laid-back psychiatrist. I need to first make a point about my mom. So, when I was writing this speech, the only thing she asked that I say in my speech is that my dad is the crazy one. So, of course, to set the record straight, my mom is the crazy one. And now that we've got that out of the way, on to my father. So, as the youngest of 3 children, my brother being 9 years older than I, meaning I was likely a mistake, by the time I came around, my parents didn't take themselves too seriously, especially my dad. My earliest memories of him were, as a psychiatrist, include him doing psychiatric review calls from the den in his pajamas. We were lucky if by the time dinner rolled around, if he had changed out of the pajamas. When he started working, outside of the house, he built his own private practice and worked at a number of different places in Santa Barbara. And despite this, his location changed, but his attire barely wavers. The man loves Hawaiian shirts, he loves golf tees, he loves cargo shorts and tebas, and even rocks a nice mullet occasionally. He also rides to work in style. Previously he owned a red convertible, and when that car had died, he bought the exact same car in a newer model. And for days he didn't want to ride in the convertible, he had a sweet island moped that he would ride down the block. And as he moves closer towards retirement, he's gotten even more relaxed, and he'll take a trip to the wine country after his half day of work. To accompany his nonchalant work attire, my father did do a great job of separating work life from home life. At home, he'd much rather than talk about work, he'd much rather talk about Mets baseball, even if they lost 100 games a season, or even his softball team, the Freudian slips. The few glimpses I did, however, get into his work life were when I actually visited his workplace, especially because other than his private practice, he chose some very interesting places to work. I got plenty of fun visits to great-smelling nursing homes in the Santa Barbara area. I got a private tour of the Santa Barbara County Jail, accompanied by lunch with all the town sheriffs. And, we're convinced he stayed there so long because he didn't want to give up his get-out-of-jail-free card, and because
because he never wanted to stop making dad jokes, starting with, "Oh, you know what I did today when I got out of jail?" And unfortunately, I never got to visit the Wasco State Penitentiary, where he had a brief 3 to 4 year stint in Bakersfield. So even with his nonchalant attitude, his fun work environments, and rockin' mullet, my dad has been a very accomplished psychiatrist, and above all, a fantastic father. I really appreciate, letting us, make our own decisions and, allowing us to grow and develop and supporting us along the way. So, Dad, thank you for everything, and Mom, also thank you for putting up with us. Thank you guys.
Since the schedule of the speakers have not arrived, they must be lost in Paris or Hawaii or someplace. I'm going to ask a few of our known attendees if they would like to share a few words. Dr. Dickstein, would you like to say a few words?
Love to.
Hi, I'm Stephen Dickstein. I'm the youngest of Dr. Leah Dickstein's sons. I'm a child psychiatrist in New York, and I've pinch hitted this a couple times. And I want to thank actually Dr. Reba and my mom for having this forum, which has been going on for 20 years, because I think when they first did it, my sense as a younger kid back then was this real concern that psychiatrists want to know, they want to know about people, and they care about their children. They want to know what are they doing to their children by having this career and finding how to balance that out. That's why it's always, I think, been very well attended. And as a child psychiatrist, now I've got a 9-year-old daughter myself, and I do think about these things. How does my work, what I do as a psychiatrist, a child psychiatrist, affect my child? And also, how do I do the best job to parent my child? Which again, my mom has apologized a million times, saying I must have been a terrible mother. And she's always worried about doing the right thing and did I do the right thing? Because she's a thoughtful, caring person who wants to do the right thing. And what I think I know as a child psychiatrist is that you only have so much control over how your children come out. You certainly, obviously there's certain things you should be doing to provide love, care, support, protection, guidance, relationship, all those kinds of things, but actually controlling it and designing it, I think, is pretty impossible. However, always being thoughtful like psychiatrists are about doing the best you can with what you got and maintaining open lines of communication, I think, has been a very important way of how I feel parented by my mom as a psychiatrist and a mom. And I guess the other thing that I think about is how do psychiatrists communicate what they do to their kids at different ages? Because we certainly, I grew up hearing some stories about what she did, but certainly they were edited at different ages about what exactly she did with her patients and the principles of confidentiality and what can go on and what can happen. Again, at different ages were communicated to me, sometimes, always, de-identified, but just exactly what she did was interesting to learn about. And then also knowing that when I had difficulties with friends in college or things that would happen at work or medical school, I always knew that I could reach out to talk about those things with my mom. And yes, she was oftentimes talk like a psychiatrist and think about it that way, but that's, again, a big part of her identity. But I do think, and when I think I spoke about this 18 years ago when I talked about it as a younger kid before I was a psychiatrist, the idea, I think, growing up as a child psychiatrist, you are aware of some things that other people aren't aware of. So certain emotional issues that maybe people don't encounter in their day-to-day lives. Your psychiatrist parent will talk about these things like depression, like suicide, like serious mental illness, like abuse, in different ways because that's what they do in their jobs, and so they're aware of it. And so I think you do learn about those things and have an empathy for those things in a different way. That's my opinion. Again, I don't know, I can't imagine that every psychiatrist parents the same way because it's complicated. However, again, I think the other real question that I think many people in the audience that come to this have is, Did I damage my child? Did I do something wrong by being a psychiatrist? I think we all have guilt, and guilt is a very useful way of parenting. It's good to give some guilt to the kids. It's good to have a little bit yourself. And I used to worry about that. Now I accept that that's just one way of parenting, which has been, again, certainly in many different cultures, a very valid way of parenting. So I just want to thank you very much for the parenting and the mentoring and the modeling and the continued source of guidance and advice that I get from my mother, the psychiatrist. Thank you.